Hi, this is Tyler Nickerson with the Daily Cardinal. I'm here with Kal Penn, actor, political activist, and so thank you very much for sitting down and talking with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so most people know you from Harold and Kumar, House, the namesake. You're a well-known name because you're acting, but you're also very involved in politics. You currently hold the Associate Director of the White House Office of Public Engagement position. How and why did you get involved in politics?
Sure. So I actually left the White House about a year ago,
Okay.
but I was working there mostly on youth outreach for about
Okay.
2 years. I'd never done anything political before I got involved in the president's campaign, but in 2007, I had friends who were overseas in Iraq, buddies that didn't have health care. I knew folks that got discharged from the military because of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and I wanted to see all of that change, mostly for friends of mine. So I just signed up to volunteer, much like a lot of our past and current volunteers. You know, went to BarackObama.com, filled out little forms, started making phone calls, and then went to Iowa, knocked on some doors, and then went from there. And then now, 4 years later, I'm volunteering again because my friends are home from Iraq, and Don't Ask, Don't Tell got repealed, and they have access to health care. College is a little more affordable than it was a couple of years ago, and want to see all of that continue.
Okay. So I'm going to read a statement or a quote from Paul Ryan. He made this in Tampa at the RNC.
Okay.
College graduates shouldn't have to spend their 20s living in their childhood bedrooms, staring up at faded Obama posters and wondering why they can't get a job and leave home. Republicans are really making a push for the youth vote using this message, kind of hitting on the economic downturn, and it seems to be working, to be honest. A lot of polls are showing that young people aren't quite as excited about Obama as they were in 2008. Do you think it's working? The Republicans' effort to try and capture some youth votes?
I mean, I think it's a horribly cynical quote. I mean, it's just very cynical. And also, I should point out for Mr. Ryan that when Shepard Fairey did some of the posters, they're faded on purpose. That's just the style of the poster, which he may not realize. But
I didn't realize that.
I think the point is a valid one, which is that we want folks to graduate with much less debt than they already have. We want to make sure that folks have jobs when they graduate. The economy has added 4.5 million private sector jobs. We've had 30 months of positive job growth. So the economy is in a recovery. It's not in a depression or recession, and we have the president to thank for that. It's a long recovery, in no small part thanks to folks like Mr. Ryan. I thought that quote is a little bit weird to me because I remember when I started working at the White House, Mr. Ryan's counterpart in the Senate, Senator McConnell, said that the Republicans' #1 priority was making sure that President Obama failed. It wasn't jobs in the economy, it wasn't finding bin Laden or making college more affordable. Their #1 priority was making sure Barack Obama failed. And so when I hear cynical quotes like this in a time of an election, it's sad, but it's not surprising. But on the flip side, we have had a president who doubled the Pell Grant, increased or created rather the American Opportunity Tax Credit, which is 10 grand to go to college. In terms of young entrepreneurs and getting jobs when you do graduate, there's a lot of capital that's freed up through the Small Business Administration. There are a lot of public-private partnerships that were created to employ young people when they're graduating. When you hear about the president investing in STEM education, that's predominantly not just to educate a strong populace, but to educate a strong workforce, make sure that engineering jobs and manufacturing jobs are coming back to the United States. So the conversation's a lot more nuanced, I think, than Mr. Ryan would like to make it out to seem, and his own budget cuts things like education, the Pell Grant, the American Opportunity Tax Credit. So I think the fair argument here to be made is that the president has turned the economy around. We still have a long way to go on several fronts, which is why we think the president deserves a second term to continue that progress and not roll it back.
This might be kind of a tough question, but what would you say is the most significant thing that Barack Obama has done for young people in his first 4 years?
Wow. What has the president done most significantly for young people? I would have to say it's almost tied. I can only pick one.
You can pick two.
I'm the guy that worked on a couple of them, so it's hard for me to just pick one.
Biased there. No, you can pick
it's actually hugely biased. So if I pick two, I would have to say healthcare reform and financial aid reform.
Okay.
The reason I say that is when you used to have a lot of young people going into debt because they got sick, and this is debt that they would take years and years to pay off, or they would go bankrupt over healthcare debt. Now that you got rid of something called pre-existing conditions and you can stay on your parents' health insurance plan until you're 26, it gets rid of a lot of that, which basically means you have a stronger workforce and you've got people that can get jobs and are more productive. And when you're looking at financial aid reform, I mean that more broadly, everything from obviously the actual reform itself, getting rid of the $60 billion that was going to big banks, and instead making sure that more young people have lower interest loans. but also things like doubling the Pell Grant and creating the American Opportunity Tax Credit. The stuff that is equally, in my opinion, on the list, but you didn't give me time for, are things like bringing our friends home from Iraq and standing up for marriage equality and things like that.
Okay. So you've had kind of an interesting career. You've managed to balance acting and your political interests, but going forward, depending on what happens in November, what's in your future?
I feel very lucky that I had the chance to go back to my first love, which is the film industry, and I would love to continue to make some fun movies. But I always, I always think there's a time to have fun and there's a time to be serious. And it was an incredible honor to serve for 2 years in the White House. Would love to continue to help however I can in a second Obama term.
Okay, I have to ask it since you're here.
Sure.
Put on your Kumar hat now. It's not even talking about the president's stance on the issue, but how do you feel about medical marijuana or marijuana in general?
Oh, I mean, I am not very versed on the issue.
Yeah.
It's not my #1 issue by any means. I know for a lot of single issue voters, if it is your most important issue, then it's your most important issue. But I don't really have an opinion on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had to ask. Sorry.
No, it's fair. I was joking with some of these guys before that sometimes I get that question, usually from journalists, and I always wonder if you're interviewing Anthony Hopkins, are you going to ask him if he eats people in real life? I know you're not. I just would love to see his face. Like putting the skin on his face and all that. But no, it's a fair question. I'm just, I don't aside from having the chance to do fun movies, don't have a strong opinion on it one way or the other.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.